morning. Looking at the subject matter and studying the curriculum vitae of my fellow panelists, I came to the conclusion that the only thing that qualified me to be on this panel is my friendship with Jacob Frankl. But now that he's taken away my ability to talk to you in Yiddish, I have a problem. But I am pleased to be here and realizing that this morning gave each of us an opportunity to share with you our very specialized, if you will, almost personal experienced view on the subject of the global challenges that impact on the Middle East. I will, with your permission, for the next 10 minutes or so, share with you a very parochial view of the subject and how I believe it impacts on Jews and the state of Israel. When I think about the future of the Middle East and global challenges, I start with two simple propositions that have guided much of my work over the many decades. When America retreats from the world, it is bad for the world and bad for Jews. When America leads in the world, it is good for the world and good for the Jews. I know things are more complicated and nuanced than suggested by these propositions, but I strongly believe in their essential truths, and I strongly believe that as we look forward and look out on the Middle East and its global challenges, at every point we should remind ourselves to ask ourselves, where is America? What is America? What are its interests? And where will it be? While much has been written about the attitudes of the State Department during World War II, which prevented the rescue of Jews, the far greater impact of American policy on the Jewish people was the retreat into isolationism following World War I and Woodrow Wilson's call for a League of Nations. In the end, as we commemorate the 70th anniversary of D-Day, as we're doing this week, America entered the war soon enough to save the world from Hitler, but America did not enter the war soon enough to save the Jews of Europe. By D-Day, only the beginning of the Allied offensive, more than 4 million Jews had already been murdered. The history of America's relations with the Jewish people, including, of course, the State of Israel, was fundamentally different in the many ways after World War II. While bilateral relations between U.S. and Israel are the subject of many of these discussions going on here this week, the broader concept which made it all possible was the bipartisan decision in the United States for America to become an international leader. In a way, it was a quirk of history that enabled this development. The main isolationists in America were Republicans, but as the Nazis were defeated, the emerging threat to America and the world came, they believed, from the communist world. And so Republicans, strongly anti-communist, joined the Democrats to support an internationalist foreign policy. That policy, with all its blunders and overreaches, has, in my view, produced a better world, and it has been good for Israel and the Jewish people. Peace may not have settled yet on Israel, but partly because America has been the leader, Israel is not only strong, but there still exists a hope for peace. I raise all of this because the issue of America's leadership in the world has surfaced in recent years in a very different way than it has for decades. Now it's a matter not of the wisdom of American intervention overseas, but whether the United States can be counted on in the first place. We see that in recent weeks in different parts of the globe. In Poland and the Baltic, one hears new skepticism as to whether the U.S. will be strong enough in the face of Putin's challenges and brutality coming out of the Ukraine. In Asia, potentially the hottest tinderbox, questions arise as well, with cross-currents of political conflict among China, Japan, South and North Korea, and Vietnam. And here in the Middle East, the spectacle of a Syrian disaster and the U.S. inaction has sent ripples through the region. Saudi Arabia's astonishing rejection of the Security Council was one reaction. Iran, we've heard a great deal about Iran today. We'll hear about it more tomorrow. Iran, the major victor in Syria, as Assad tightens his grip on power, undoubtedly feels emboldened as the nuclear talks reach their critical stage. As for larger strategic issues in the region, I think Henry Kissinger's analysis, first applied during the Cold War, holds true today in slightly different ways. He argued that American support for Israel was in American strategic interest because when Israel defeated the radical pro-Soviet states in the region, the moderate Arabs would stay with the U.S. rather than go over to the Soviets. So today the moderate Arab states continue to look for American leadership. When they perceive American weakness, they think about their options. If Iran and radical Islamists are not going to be deterred by America, then those more moderate countries will find their own solutions, whether developing nuclear weapons, as we've heard, or possibly appeasing the radicals. There still is much debate about America's role in the world. The Obama administration rejects the claim that we are retreating. Instead, the president articulated his vision of a policy approach in a post-Afghanistan world. But it is America's domestic situation that generates these tendencies. For some Republicans now that the Cold War long gone, old thoughts about no need to be involved resurface. And for some Democrats, domestic priorities prevail. And in any case, a less prosperous America, as we've just heard from Jacob Frankel, is less in a position to lead. I started by saying that American leadership is good for the Jews and good for the world. I haven't given up on that leadership role for America. If we get Iran right, either reaching a good agreement, as Minister Steinitz tried to impress upon us, or maintaining all options if no agreement, much of U.S. credibility could be restored. Indeed, it could set the stage for a true coalition of countries, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, together with the U.S., to oppose the radical Islamists. The Palestinian issue never was a key to the broader Middle East strategic challenge. But if we get some of the other things right, it might make the Israel-Palestinian conflict more open to solution than it has been in the past. Let me make two additional observations, not in line with the presentation, but more on the mega scale that Jacob Frankel addressed, not in the economic sphere, but in the mega sphere. The Anti-Defamation League, with which I have been affiliated for almost 50 years, just concluded a poll on anti-Semitic attitudes throughout the world in 100 countries to determine the level of anti-Semitism. You might quibble with some of the data with the questions, with the percentages. But whatever your questions and hesitancy, what is very, very clear is that there is a significant infection of anti-Semitism in all parts of the globe. Today, ironically or interestingly, anti-Semitism is more determined by region than anything else. And as we look at the Middle East and its global mega challenges, we should not ignore the challenge of anti-Semitism. For today, as we see it, it infects the Middle East in ways that it doesn't affect anywhere else in the world. Almost 75% of the Middle East of North Africa is infected. And 1 out of 2 Muslims in the world, wherever they may live, are infected with disease of anti-Semitism. So whatever leaders may arise who want to challenge the status quo or change, they will have to be accountable to that ill wind of that disease which infects their countries. And finally, the Internet. Yes, the Internet is something we all praise and wonder about, but it has already destroyed privacy in our universe, and it's about to destroy respectability. And it is a double-edged sword, which again will infect and impact on the ability of leaders, if they are courageous, to stand up and make courageous decisions in light of the fact that there is now a superhighway which communicates some of the old isms, the old hatreds, the old conspiracies, which these leaders have to contend with every single day. Thank you very much.